if you can just bear with us going through questions and you understand everything, then you don't have anything for homework. Okay, so the first thing here, it asks us, it says two sides of a triangle are 25 centimeters and 10 centimeters. Or I'm sorry, two sides of an isosceles triangle. You mean what? Okay. Anybody else? Do you guys remember what an isosceles triangle is? Anybody remember that? Two sides are the same. Very good. So what we have here we have two different scenarios. We have isosceles triangles, which means two sides are the same, okay? We know one of the sides is 25 and one of the sides is 10, but we don't know which side has two of the same. So we could have 25, 25, and 10, or we could have 10, 10, and 25. Now what this is trying to do is see if you guys understand one rule about triangles. I think I might have talked about this once, but there's a rule with triangles that your two smaller sides added together has to be bigger than your third side. So 10 plus 10 has to be bigger than 25, okay? Is 20 bigger than 25? No. So this one can't be the triangle, and this is our triangle. And what they ask us is, what is the perimeter? And if you noticed here, the two smaller sides, well, one would be 10, and one would just be the 25. Is that bigger than 25? And it is. So that one can form a triangle, and we want to find the perimeter, so we would just add around. 25 plus 25 is 50, plus 10 is 60. So you just have to remember, when you add the two smaller sides together, it has to be bigger than the third side. Okay, this one says, Caleb's square garden has an area of 125 square feet. What is the perimeter of Caleb's garden? So we have a square garden where the area is 125. Now, in a square garden, all four sides are equal. And when you think of area of a square, some people just think of it as side times side, where area of a square you can just think of it as side squared. Okay, it's probably the easiest way. So if I put 125 in here, how do I solve for s? Square root. Now I'm guessing, you guys, that you could use a calculator on this. That's one thing that I am not certain of. Could you guys estimate square root of 125? Okay, so think about that. Square root of 125. You have to think about, what two perfect squares would that be between? Do you guys know, like, the squares of, like, I know you guys know 1 squared and 2 squared and 3 squared and so on, but how about once you get to, like, 10 squared is 100? Do you guys know what 11 squared is? 121. 12 squared is 144. Do you know 13 squared? Good. Do you know 14 squared? 196. Good. And 15 squared? Yep, very good. Okay, so 125 would be between these two, right? And wouldn't it be if this is 125 or 121 and this one is 144, okay? Isn't 125 closer to 121? The square root of 121 is 11. This one is 12. Our number is going to be in between there somewhere, but closer to 121. So you could say maybe it's 11.1 or 11.2, something like that. Okay, let's say 11.1. If we had to do that on our own, and they asked us, what is the perimeter? Wouldn't you just go 4 times 11.1 because it's a square? And 4 times 11.1 would be 44.4. And so I'm off a little bit, so they might have used their calculator, okay? And if we did it that way, just so you know, the square root of 125 on our calculator, they must have just used the calculator. So square root of 125 is 11.18. Okay. So this would be 11.18. This would be 4 times 11.18, which would be the 44.72. So this was estimated. This is actual. So you can definitely tell which answer it would be. Now again, remember, this is your cheat sheet you guys have tomorrow, and that's the only cheat sheet that you get. So Pythagorean theorem, distance formula, slope, slope-intercept form, and then point slope form. And what would happen in point slope form, you guys, is they would give you the point, and they would give you the slope. And what you do is you put the slope in right here. You put your x in right here. And your y in right here. And then all you do is if you have a minus minus, you change it to a plus. That's all the simplifying you have to do. So this was minus a negative 3, so it became y plus 3 equals 4 times x minus 2. So it's going to look weird like that. If they ever do standard form, do you guys remember I talked about after our last quiz? Like if you got 1/4 x plus 5y equals 10. For standard form, you have to have your x, you have to have your y, and then you have to have a number, but you can't have a fraction. So what you do is you multiply everything by whatever's on the bottom of your fraction. So what we're gonna do is multiply by 4, and 4 times 1/4 is just 1x, 4 times 5y is 20y, and 4 times 10 is 40. So this is in standard form, not that, okay? If you guys aren't listening today, then I am gonna make you do the homework, okay? All right, then another thing that is on here, just so you remember, is the arithmetic sequence and the geometric sequence. Do you guys remember what the M stood for and what the B stood for in that? One was the starting point and one was the difference between. Yeah, very good. M is the difference and B is the starting point. Very good. And then in a geometric sequence, one of these is the starting point, and one of them is what you multiply by each time. Do you remember what A is? A is the starting point. Okay? So that's where you start. And then B is, they call it the common ratio. What you're multiplying by each time, which could be a half. That still would be a common ratio. Okay. So here it says we have a 5-foot tall fence supported by a piece of wood. The wood is attached to the fence 2 feet from the top. So what that means is the distance from here to here is 2 feet. What then would the rest of that distance be? 3 feet, okay? And then it says the wood is connected to the ground 2.5 feet from the base, okay? So we have this scenario right here. We have 3, 2.5. And what they want to know is how long is the piece of wood? So we want this. Anyone see how we would do that? Pythagorean theorem. And isn't this your C? Do you guys get that? So this is my C, this is my A, this is my B. Okay, so if I did A squared plus B squared equals C squared, A could be my 3 squared, B is 2.5 squared, and C is x squared. Okay, this is 9. 25 squared is 625. So 2.5 squared would be 6.25. Okay, so this is another one where I'm not sure if they would let you use a calculator or not. Okay, if they let us use a calculator, I'm gonna just check that 2.5 squared, but I think I'm right, yeah. So if they let us use a calculator and we did square root of 15.25, that would be 3.91. Now that is the length of the wood, and here would be our answer. Okay. This one here uses slope, and that is one of the formulas that you have on your cheat sheet. So if we do m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, we subtract our y's on top. So we go y minus y, which is 9 minus 7, over 0 minus 3. Okay, now 9 minus 7 is 2, 0 minus 3 is a negative 3, so that would be our slope. Doesn't matter where that negative goes, it could be on top, out front, or on the bottom, but it's negative 2/3. Okay, then if we look at this one, I'm positive they're gonna have a distance formula problem tomorrow, a slope, or over the next 3 days, a slope problem. You're gonna be writing in the equation for a line in both point slope and slope intercept, and then putting it in standard form. All of those things I'm pretty positive about. If you look at this one and you try to find the distance of it the long way, what you're gonna notice is when these both have 12 in them like that, that means either it's a horizontal line or a vertical line. And you could, if you wanted to, if that ever happens, you could kind of sketch the graph and look at, like, say this was 12 up 4. 12 up 4, like right here, and then 12 up 9, okay? And you had to find the distance between that. Your x's don't change. How much space would be between 9 and 4? 5, and that would be the distance. If you didn't notice that and you ran through that distance formula, you would get that same answer. Do you guys think you know how to do distance formula okay? You guys okay with that? Okay. Do you remember in distance formula what happens if you square a negative? It becomes positive. Don't forget that. Okay. So here's one where we're doing distance formula, and this is another thing they could do tomorrow, is they could have axes that aren't counted by ones. So if you notice, this one is counted by 2, so 2, 4, 6, 8. So thinking about that, this line is -6, so that point you get would be -7, and then up how much? So -7 is between -6 and -8. Wouldn't this be 2, right? So that point is -7, 2. What do you guys think this point would be? So over how much? 6 and down 5. So wouldn't it be 6, -5? Okay. And now we're gonna do distance formula. Okay. The order that you subtract your x's does not matter. So let's say you went -7 minus 6 squared plus, and then you have to do your y's in the same order as you do the x's. So here's your x's, then I have to do that same order with my y's. So I'd go 2 minus a -5 squared, okay? -7 minus 6 is -13, and that's squared. 2 negatives in a row become positive. 2 plus 5 is 7 squared. One place that I see kids getting distance formula wrong is they try to skip this step and they miss like a minus sign. So because you have such few problems, show your work and make sure you don't make those silly mistakes. So -13 squared. 13 squared is 169. Do you think it's going to be positive or negative? Positive. And 7 squared is 49. So that would be what, 218? And I'm guessing we could use our calculators. Let's see. Square root 218 is 14.76 or 14.8. Okay. All right, now let's go here. This one is a little bit different, but I saw this one kind of hop up quite a bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if you had something like this. It says point Q is in quadrant 1, and this is quadrant 1. The length of segment P to Q is root 29. Segment PQ is not horizontal and it's not vertical. What that means is we're going to have a diagonal line and we're going to have Pythagorean theorem, okay? But here's the thing. You have to think about what are two perfect squares that add up to 29. Think of perfect squares like 1 is 1, 2 is 4, 3 is 9, 4 is 16, 5 is 25. What are two of them that if you add together you get 29? Yeah, wouldn't it be 5 squared and 2 squared, right? Everybody get that? what that means then is from this point, you're gonna have triangles where one leg is 2 and one is 5, and you wanna check all of them that end up with, all of them that end up in the first quadrant. There's 3 answers, and this one's open-ended, so any of those 3 would work, okay? So let's look at it. You could go here, and you could go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 2, and that would be your new point right here. I'm still in the first quadrant, so one of my points there could be, what is that? Over 8, up 1, 2, 3, that's 8, 3, okay? A second thing that we could do is we could go over 2 and up 5. So we're gonna be moving 5s and 2s. So I'm gonna go over 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that would be over 2, up 5. And that would be another possibility. And that one is 5, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? And again, you only have to do one of them. You don't have to do all. Now, we also need to do it in the other direction. But think about this, guys. If I did the 5 this way, would I still be in the first quadrant? No. So that one you don't worry about. But could I go over 2 and up 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could. Okay, over 2 up 5 works. And that is the point 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 6. Any of those work. Then, if we look here, it says the longer leg of a right triangle is 12 inches long. Now, a right triangle, okay, has a shorter leg and a longer leg if they're not equal, okay? So let's say this is our shorter, this is our longer, this is our hypotenuse, and it says the longer leg is 12. Okay, then it says the length of the hypotenuse is 2 times the length of the shorter leg. Okay, so what I can do there, guys, is just use this as S. I don't know what it is, but I know my hypotenuse is 2 times that, which would be 2S. And then what we would do is Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Do you guys all know why I have S and 2S? Does that make sense? Okay. So now I'm going to substitute in. I could call this my A, this my B, this my C. So A is S squared, B is 12 squared, and C is 2S squared. Now, 12 squared is 144, 2 squared is 4, and then it's S squared. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just subtract my S squared and bring it over here, and I'd get 144 equals 4S squared minus, that's really 1S squared, is 3S squared. Then I would divide by 3, and I'd get S squared equals, again on this one, I'm quite certain they'd let you use a calculator. So we could do, we could do 144 divided by 3. But is that my answer? No, then what do I have to do? Square root. So my answer would be square root of 48, which is 6.93. And it looks like they rounded to the nearest tenth, so 6.9 would be your answer. Okay. Then let's look at this one. Okay. It says trapezoid RSTU has vertices, and we're gonna just sketch this out. Okay. So let's do that. We're gonna make a graph. And right now we have a trapezoid. We'll try to make it as accurate as we can. This is R. S is over 3 up 3. That's S. T is over 7. 6, 7 up 3. That's T. And U is over 10. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 down to, which is U. Okay? So if I draw that trapezoid, it would be like this. Definitely looks like a trapezoid. Okay? But here's what it's saying. Point U is transformed to change RSTU into a parallelogram. So point U is moved, okay? And what they're asking you is to move that U. Which of these would we want to do? So right now, U is at 10, -2. And what this is saying, if you subtracted 8 from the x and kept your y the same, would it be in a point that it could be a parallelogram? So right now we're at 10. If I subtracted 8, we'd be at 2. And then our y stays the same, so it would be like a point right, is that right? 2, -2. That doesn't really look right, but it is. So do you see how this is 1, 2, 3, 4 between these two? This is 1, 2, 3, 4 also. So that this right here is a parallelogram. And how do I know that? Because opposite sides are equal. Okay? And you could go through, if you took this, whoops, and you added 2 to your x and subtracted 2 from your u, would that work? And that would move it over to the right, which we wouldn't want. If we added 8 to our x, we'd be over at 18. That's not gonna work. If we multiplied x by 2, again, it would be way over here. That would not work. So our answer is that first one, okay? Now, this one here asks us to take and where would the image of Q be if after triangle PQR is reflected across the x-axis? So Q is reflected over this x-axis first. What I would do for this one, you guys, is just count up to the x-axis. It's 1 away. So our new Q is going to go 1 in the opposite direction right here. And you can call that Q prime. Then we're going to reflect over the y. That's 1 away. So we're going to make a new Q right here. And that's Q double prime. And that's our answer because they want to reflect it over the x and then the y. So it would be 1, 1. Okay? We have 2 pages left that we have to do. Okay? So if you guys remember absolute value inequalities, Haley taught you guys this. I teach this one here a little bit different, and I'm gonna show you that way just to see if that makes more sense to you guys. But when you take the absolute value and it's less than B, what you do is you take that A, you keep the signs as less than, okay? And if this is B, you put negative B here and positive B here. Now, there will be numbers in here, not just letters, and then you would solve it, and I'd show you that. This one, Haley also taught, and this she did, not that she did this one wrong, I just thought maybe it was a little more confusing than it needed to be. But this one, when it's greater than, you write it exactly the same, and then you switch the sign and switch the sign on your B. Okay, so this becomes less than. If this is positive, it becomes negative. Okay, so let's look at this. This one is a greater than. When it's greater than, you keep the sign and the number the same the first time, and then you put or, and then for the second one, would my sign be the same? The second one, you switch your sign and you switch the sign on that 2. Okay? So here, I'm going to subtract 4. And T would be greater than or equal to negative 2. Okay? This one, I subtract my 4. And here, the sign stays the same. Do you guys remember when you flip the sign with inequalities? When you divide by a negative. So here we didn't. And then this is asking us to graph this up here. So the way this would be on the MCA test is you would like drag this up and you choose which one to use. Because this is greater than or equal to, that means that you would go to negative 2. Do you get that? It would be a closed circle. And greater than is this way. Okay? For this one, it's T is less than or equal to negative 6. So we'd have closed again. Less than is this way, and we'd be graphed that way. So if you were doing this on the test, you would take this and put it right there. You would take this one and put it right there. And set them up at negative 2 and negative 6. Okay? Then if I look at this one, this is the one that I said I would have taught this a little bit different. It's F minus 25 in absolute value is less than or equal to 10. When it's greater than or equal to, you have the or. When it's less than, that's when you put this in the middle. You make this sign less than or equal to, as well as that one less than or equal to. And then you make this negative here and positive there. So you just copy this down and this down like it is. Keep the same sign, but this is the opposite of that. Okay? Now when you go to solve that, you solve it like you're solving an equation. So if this is minus 25, you would add 25, but this has 3 parts. So you add 25 there, you add 25 here, and you add 25 here. Okay? This is gone. In the middle, you only want a variable, which we have now. Negative 10 plus 25 is 15, and 10 plus 25 is 35. Now, when you have a variable in between like that, that means your graph is going to be in the middle of those two numbers. So you're going to want a closed circle at 15, a closed circle at 35, and F is in between there. So it'd be this one right here. Everybody understand that? Okay. Now I'm going to just talk super quick about, just review the real number system. Rational numbers is anything that can be written as a fraction. So integers are positive and negative whole numbers, including 0. So integers would be -10, -9, 0, all the way up to infinite on both sides. Whole numbers are your positive integers and 0. Natural numbers also can be called counting numbers, and they are your numbers 1 and on. It doesn't include 0. Now, other things that can be rational numbers is anything that can be written as a decimal. If you got this, can that be, or I'm sorry, anything that can be written as a fraction. Can this be written as a fraction? 2/3, right? If they gave you 2.12 repeating, any repeating decimal can be written as a fraction. If they gave you 3.875, if it stops, if your decimal stops, it can be written as a fraction. Now let's talk about irrational. That would be anything with pi. Oh, and by the way, I should say over here, square root of 25 would be rational because square root of 25 is 5. Over here, I could have square root of 3. That is going to keep going forever. And then another one I could have is like some rando thing, and then it would just keep going forever. That would be irrational. Okay? And then there's just one other thing I wanted to talk about. And we have 2 problems for that, and then I'll be done. Okay? The one section I had to skip was on scatter plots. I just ran out of time. So you could see something where you have points and they have a scatter plot, okay? And one thing they could ask you is what kind of correlation does it have? So if your points are like this and your scatter plot goes up, that is called a positive correlation. So as your x goes up, your y goes up. If your points went like this and we're trending down, that would be negative. Okay? If your points go like this, gosh, I can't think of what that's called now. I can look back and tell you. For some reason, I'm blanking on that right now. But then another one you could have is where your points are real random and you can't really draw a line. That would be no correlation. I don't know why I can't think of that right now. I'm gonna look it up super quick. Oh, they don't even go over that. They just do positive, negative, and no correlation. So ignore this one. Positive, negative, and no correlation. Okay, so now what they could do today is, or in your test, is they could ask you a question like, what point could have been added to the scatter plot to increase the slope of best fit? What that means is you would have wanted a point up here somewhere. Because if you put a point up here, up here, that might change your line of best fit a little bit, okay? If they wanted you to decrease the slope, you'd put a point down here somewhere. So you would want a point that is up above that line, which would be like 2, 6 would be up here. That would be the 1. Okay, everybody understand that? And then this last question, it says, how many boxes, okay, Cindy sells boxes of homemade cookies at various stores. She records the number of boxes she sells each day and the price per box at each store. Using the line of best fit, how many boxes will be sold if the price per box is $8? So if you had to, this would be 6, 7, 8, you could kind of estimate. Okay, it's gonna go down 1, down another one, down another one. You could kind of estimate. Where do you think that would be? Wait, no, price per box at 8. So notice this slope is down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1 would be at 7, down 1 over 1 would be at 8. I just went too far there. So, down 1 over 1 here, down 1 over 1 here. Wouldn't it be at 4? Do you guys get that? Okay. And then I just have one last thing to say. The last thing that they could say is write a line, an equation of a line of best fit. Would you guys know how to do that? You would pick 2 points that the point this graph goes through, like I could pick those 2. This point is what, 314, and this point is 412. Do you guys remember how to write an equation given the slopes, or given 2 points? You have to find the slope first, so let's do that. We'd go 12 minus 14 is -2. 4 minus 3 is 1. So my slope is -2. Then what I would do is use one of those 2 points, and it wouldn't matter which one. So 314. And then what we would do is go y equals mx plus b. Okay. Y would be 14, m would be -2, x would be 3, and that would be plus b. And then 14 would equal -6 plus b, add 6, and b would be 20. Then when you write your final equation, what 2 things do you substitute in? The slope and the y-intercept. So it'd be y equals m is -2x and b is plus 20. Oh, yeah, this one you could actually. And you can see the slope. You're going down 2 over 1. Good point. Yes, on that one you absolutely could have done that. Okay? All right. So, the homework is up on the corner of my desk. If anyone wants to grab that, they can. You do not have to. Try to get a good sleep the next 3 nights. Seriously, you guys. Take this seriously because you have to do well to get into the college courses. Sorry I've rambled so much today.
Hey, you see this? It's like a half of your phone. Yeah.
What day is Friday? Friday. Every day. Tuesday.
Were you sick, or did you
No, I was
go?
on
Oh, Tuesday through
I was on a
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
yeah, I was on a robotics.
Okay. So this would have been Thursday.
Yeah, he's like 42 years old.
Oh, wait. Did you already take that?
I want to see a 60-year-old No, actually, no.
What did you say? You said like 6 or something.
And now the change to 180 after. 180.
Okay, so I don't have the note packet for this date, but it would be on Schoology. But this one is Tuesday, this is Wednesday, that's Thursday. Alrighty?
Thank you.
Yes. Have a good day.